Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm almost 18 years old. I have decided to leave home. You probably want to know why. It's my mum. Since my parents got divorced, she doesn't love me anymore. She never did, I guess. But let's start from the beginning. It'll be easier for you to understand if you hear my story. I was their only child, and I grew up in a very secure and loving environment. Everything was just right. I even had the perfect cat. I felt so loved by my parents. It seemed that nothing could upset our family home. But I was wrong. One day, when I was 13, my dad took me to one side and told me that he and Mum were getting a divorce. The shock of it pierced me like an arrow. I never believed this could happen to me, happen to my family. He said all the usual phrases parents use when telling their children they are planning to divorce. Nothing will change between us. I'll see you each week. You can visit me. I love you so much. And even though your mum and me aren't together, we'll still be your parents. But his words could not stop my despair. If I was to live 1,000 years, I will never forget the pain, hurt and anxiety I felt on that day. Dad lied. Everything changed. Everything. Since the day he left, my life has never been the same. The world became a grey, lonely place. I saw nothing that made me smile, and all I wanted to do was sleep, sleep, sleep. Even school became a living hell for me. I had trouble concentrating. My grades began to drop, and even the smallest thing would start me crying. My teacher felt obliged to call my mum. When she got back from work that evening, she marched straight to my room with her hands crossed over her chest. She was furious. She told me that she would not tolerate my poor behaviour. I started to cry, but it didn't seem to bother her. She even told me that I had no reason to cry, because Dad left her, not me. And I was so hurt and humiliated. I'd never seen my mum like this before, and she had never screamed at me before. As far as I know, your dad left me, not you. Her words kept going round and round in my head. It was actually true. I've been seeing my dad every 2 weeks. Why did I have the right to moan? I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, but I was convinced that I needed to help my mum. So I managed to put a smile on my face, and she seemed pleased to see me making an effort, but it didn't last long before she became irritated with me again. Each day I pretended that there was nothing wrong, and with a real effort, I managed to improve my school results. Although this was not from any personal ambition to do well, but a feeling of duty and fear of my mum's reaction if I didn't. Mum became really controlling, and after meeting my teacher, she monitored all my tasks, making an awful scene if they were not done perfectly. I didn't know Mum anymore. I didn't recognize the woman who used to smell good as she tucked me up in bed after reading me a story. How could she have changed so much and become such a monster? On the other hand, Dad was never angry. When he came to pick me up, he was always smiling. I started living for the weekends that I got to spend with him, my only time of happiness. As the years passed, I never told my dad how angry my mum was. If I had, he would have wanted to know more, and I didn't want to risk this causing problems and Mum not allowing me to see him. At school, while other pupils enjoyed sports, after-school clubs and going round to each other's houses to do their homework, I wasn't allowed to have any friends and was made to come straight home. Once, when I asked her if I could invite some schoolmates home for my birthday party, she miraculously agreed. It was a catastrophe. She stood in the middle of the room and criticized all my guests with remarks like, "Does your mother really let you go so dressed up?" Obviously, since then, no one has ever wanted to come to mine. I've spent the remaining years of school on my own. I told myself, just hang on, Jessica. It will come to an end. It can't always carry on like this. I didn't stop trying to figure out what had happened to my mother to turn her into such a cold and hard woman. From the accusations she threw at me when she was angry, it was clear she blamed me for her frustration with her unsuccessful marriage, and that I was the unwanted baggage that had stopped her from getting on with her life. I could only keep quiet during these outbursts, but it hurt terribly. Meanwhile, I have learnt that Dad has another woman, even though I've never met her. But it's not really a surprise. He is such a happy, loving person that I do not blame him for moving on. On finding out that Dad had someone else, I got the blame again. "So, is that your gratitude after I brought you up and raised you? You are so ungrateful." I said nothing. I knew if I did, I'd only make it worse. And yet, I still felt sorry for her and continued to hope that it would get easier as time passed. But one day, things got out of control. She came back furious from work. I'd never seen her that bad. Later, I realized that she'd heard that my dad was having another baby with his new wife. She started to shout and scream at me. I didn't realize what was happening. The harsh words flew from her mouth, and even though I didn't say a thing and just stood there in front of her crying, she kept hurling the insults until she was out of breath. And I stood there for the last time. So now you know. Now I have decided to get away from her. I will go to my father's house until I graduate, and then, who knows? Who knows what life holds for me? But one thing I do know for sure. One day, when I have them, I will not let my kids suffer the way I did.